And it's one of the business strategies that I saw as an opportunity for us to differentiate right up front is that these other people in the registration ticketing space were making a bulk of their money off of transaction processing. I saw other people trying to pollute that pure business model with either an advertising type of thing or...
Hey listeners, welcome to Tech in 26.2 podcast, where I'm chatting with leaders in endurance tech industry to learn about how those different techs support the athletes, the event organizers, and the community in general. On this very first episode of this podcast, I'm happy to bring you Bob Bickel, the founder of RunSignup, an all-in platform for event management. It is one of the biggest platforms for event registration today. In fact, 40% of all US races uses RunSignup platform. On this podcast, I go deep into learn about RunSignup's founding journey, how Bob scaled RunSignup to where it is today, the different trends that he has seen over the years, and also where the industry is heading. We also talk about some of the leadership principles that Bob uses at RunSignup. I'm sure you'll enjoy the conversation and the story as well. I am Kamal Dada, founder of Traxemo and host of this podcast. And if you like this podcast, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, or share. Enjoy this episode. Welcome, Bob, to this podcast. I'm really excited to have you here and learn about RunSignup.
Oh, thanks.
So let's start with, what is RunSignup, Bob?
RunSignup is a technology company that provides basically software services to events. And we kind of started in the endurance space, and we've grown over the past few years to expand that into peer-to-peer fundraising events, as well as into ticket events, especially in the category where it's more complex events and they have needs for like multi-day timed entry and things like that. So think of us as, I heard us described early on as a bunch of old high school cross-country nerds that grew up and started a company, which I think is still kind of appropriate for us.
Oh, that's great. And we're going to talk a little bit more on that, as you were an athlete and cross-country, and then you started. I'm curious to see, deep dive into your founding story, like how you are passionate about running and how did you end up founding RunSignup? What is the founding story? What drove you to start this amazing company?
It can be really long, but I started running in high school, and I was pretty good. And then I went to Bucknell University, and the coach there trained with the Lydiard method, and he had this philosophy of the strength of the team is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. And so, like, it was really an interesting type of combination where I got to be a fairly decent runner at Bucknell. And I got there because we ran 5 miles every morning and 10 miles every afternoon. And not a lot of people do that. And so we got pretty good. Yeah. We got better than average. And then we ran together as a team. So when we went out, we would run as a pack. And when you're running as a pack, you want to support the other people that are in the pack. And so one of your motivations for not falling off pace is to help the others keep pace, right? So if you and I are running, I want to encourage you to stick with me. And that's kind of like the foundation of like so many philosophies that have taken me through my life and everything, that experience at Bucknell. And then, RunSignup started 2009, 2010. And running was a big passion. At that point in my life, I was doing a number of running-oriented things. And I was electrical engineer undergrad, and did computers and went into the business side and product management side of things, and was part of a bunch of startup companies since around 1992. and was on the first wave of the internet and Java and application servers and deep infrastructure type of stuff. And I kind of was lucky and got involved and contributed on several fairly successful startup companies.
Great.
So RunSignup really was meant to be like a side passion project that combined my kind of I just love starting up technology companies and my love for running. And it was just supposed to be a side passion project. Met this wonderful young man who was in college at the time, Steven Sigurd, and he's our CTO. He's really the real reason why RunSignup is successful. I've probably worked with about 1,500 software developers, at least moderately closely over the years, and he's simply the best. He just he's just absolutely wonderful. So we just started building technology in 2010, and people found it and they liked it, and then it got out of hand. So it's probably more than just a passion project now.
It is. I mean, just looking at the numbers, and I know you've been very humble to say the numbers, but if I'm looking at the numbers that are publicly available, RunSignup has registrations that are 9 million plus runners registered through RunSignup platform every year. You are organizing, or 28,000 running organizers use RunSignup platform, plus 131,000 running clubs that are using RunSignup platform. And overall, in US, we have 40% market share in the registration and an overall event organization in endurance sports, which is pretty amazing. So, you're humble to say the number, but I'm trying to see the numbers available publicly. That's an amazing numbers for sure.
Well, this kind of goes back to the Bucknell story, right?
Yeah.
Basically, the way I feel what we've done is we've run 5 and 10 every day for the past 14 years. And not many people do that. Not many people keep their head down, keep focused on like, what do customers need and how do we build the best software that we possibly can? And what happens is you see these other people coming into the market or competitors that used to be big and around. They don't have that focus. They don't have that sense of purpose that we seem to have. And I think that's really our differentiation is just like, we care about our people, we care about our customers, we care about the technology that we put out, and we try to make it really good. And we just try to improve a little bit every day. And after 14 years, the compound interest of trying to make yourself a little bit better actually pays off. Absolutely. And numbers are speaking that continuous improvement cycle that you are on. We're a 14-year overnight success.
Yeah, it's a nice way to put it too. One area that I'm always curious, I know you started RunSignup in 2008, 2009, you mentioned, and especially from the founders, I love to hear the story on getting your first paying customer when someone actually take their card or cash out. It's like, okay, I'm going to pay for this technology or problem that you're trying to solve. What was the story of your first paying customer?
So Stephen actually started working with me in the summer of 2009. He was going to college at the time. And so that summer, he mostly did it. I did about that much of it. And we just put it out there at the end of the summer. And I actually had a friend, and I live in Morristown, New Jersey, and the friend was having his 10th anniversary, alumni anniversary for his high school graduating class. And I asked him if he would kind of be a tester for us and use it. And so it was like they had a little 5K, they had 31 people sign up, and they used our software and it didn't break. And so Stephen went back to school at the end of August, and that race was at the end of August, and we just left it up. And neither of us did anything to it. And between then and Thanksgiving, about 20 races had somehow found it, had gone through the wizard to set up their race and had actually started having people sign up. And so it was Thanksgiving time, and I went to Stephen because he was graduating a semester early because he's exceptionally bright, and he was graduating at the end of December. And I said, "Hey, do you want to join the mega company, RunSignup?" And so he said, "Sure." And so in January of 2010 is when I called the official start of RunSignup. So he would start coming over to my house on Mondays, and we'd work together, and then he'd go home and work the rest of the week, and then we'd get together again the next Monday. And basically I was kind of the person that would put stuff on the website and, talk to customers if we needed to talk to customers. And then I would be seeing what the customers were doing. And then we get together on Monday, and I'm kind of like an idea type of a person. And so we talk about all the ideas of how we can improve the product. And then he would go and make the little bit of improvement, and just it just kept iterating like that.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And so today, every week at 9:30 on Monday, we have the Monday meeting, and we go through all of the input from all of the customers. So everybody in the company has access to something called GitHub, where they put different ideas and thoughts into. And every Monday, it's more than just Stephen and me now. There's 5 of us, but we get together and review every idea that comes in, and we put it into buckets, and we decide what we can work on now, and those buckets over time kind of build up, and then we'll assign a developer to work on those, like maybe 2 years after. And so our customers, and some of them are called Monday tasks, and so we'll turn around those like very quickly because they only take an hour or 2 to do or something. And so customers wind up seeing, like real improvements and real features like very quickly off of their suggestions. So that's how it started. That's the first customer, but we just kept doing kind of the same thing and kept keeping the kind of the same pace and approach, and it works. It's the 5 and 10.
Oh, that's amazing. So 14 plus years, you're continuing the Monday morning
Absolutely
sync, which is awesome.
Yeah, and we called them Monday tasks. So one of the buckets we put things into is Monday tasks, and then all the developers can go in Monday tasks and take a Monday task, and it should take between an hour and a day to do. And newer developers, they'll actually start off by doing those, and kind of learning and adapting their kind of easier tasks, and then they kind of mature and grow and learn more.
That's great. I have gone through a couple of your writings that you started, which is an amazing way to connect with your team as well as your customer, which is called the Founders Corners that you started. And you share your inputs, your thoughts in a very transparent way, like how you're thinking about the company. One of the key areas that actually struck out was you're leading the company in a product-led way. So the product-led based companies now it's a trendy word, but you've been doing it for a long time. And that led you to stand up to other brands, the GiveSignup and TicketSignup. I'm curious to hear about the story and how did you continue focusing on the product, and that led to those 2 other products that you're known in the market today as well.
Yeah. Well, as background, I kind of have an unnatural advantage in that I've been a part of a number of semi-successful startups. And so I've always had an appreciation for the product side of things. I was always very much centered on that, even before product led was a term.
Yeah.
All the companies I've been a part of, the reason that I became a part of them or created them was because of the product. Right. It had superiority over other things that were in the market, and so that's kind of that's where product led comes from. So you don't spend a lot of money on sales and marketing. You actually spend a lot of money on your software, and then your sales and marketing is really all aimed at trying to get referrals from your customer base. And the way you do that is you spend your marketing dollars. Our marketing team is really an education team.
Right.
Anyway, that's product led. How we got into GiveSignup and TicketSignup. So it was 2019, it was pre-pandemic, and we were probably around 25% market share in the endurance space at that point in time in the US. And I saw this point in time where our growth would kind of cap. And so one of the options was just to stick with that. The problem with that is in an organization, if you're not growing, then you're not providing the employees an opportunity to grow. And what it turns out is that there's a very adjacent kind of potential markets for us to go into. And about half of our customers are actually nonprofit entities themselves. Right. And somewhere around 90% of all of our endurance customers are affiliated in some sort of way with a nonprofit. It might be a commercial company that owns a 5K or half marathon or something, but they're partnered with Make a Donation to American Cancer Society or something like that. Right. And so what we did is we initially thought, well, let's go after that nonprofit market and go after other types of events that they have, golf outings, galas, things like that. So we started that. The pandemic kind of sidetracked us, and we got into virtual, which kind of saved the company during the pandemic. But during that process, we started onboarding a lot of nonprofits who had their galas were canceled because they couldn't do in-person events. And they heard that we had a virtual 5K platform that they could raise money on and stuff like that. What GiveSignup has wound up becoming is focused on peer-to-peer events. So a year or two ago, as an example, a large customer, Tunnel to Towers organization, started using us. And they have this big event that runs through the tunnel and commemorates the 9/11, first responders and things like that. They have like 20,000 people, but there's like fundraising teams. So some of the people are able to put up their own page on GiveSignup to say, please donate to, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. They actually have multiple events. They have a stair climb. They've actually, distributed out. This year, we seem to have won a number of like cycling events. So locally here, there's something called Bend the Shore. It goes from Ben Franklin Bridge down to the shore. The Ernie Els Autism Foundation has decided to use us for all their golf tournaments and things like that. So that's GiveSignup. TicketSignup kind of originated with this idea of creating a lighter weight ticket platform for galas and golf outings.
I see.
It's the ticket marketplace is very, very large. Eventbrite is kind of like the one that lots of people know. But what we found in the ticket market is that people aren't really paying enough attention to the technology and the nuances. And there's events that need good technology. And so we're finding that to be a big, potential market over time. So if you look at our business today, we've got the endurance market, which is growing slowly because the overall endurance space isn't growing that much, and we have so much of it captured already. So it'll continue to grow, 5 to 10% a year. The GiveSignup peer-to-peer space, nonprofits make decisions slowly, they move over slowly. So that's probably like a 15 to 20% growth per year. And then the ticket space is just so big and we're so small still, we'll have 50 to 100+% growth in that for probably the next 5 years to come. So what'll happen is that, 5 years from now, we'll actually have a more balanced portfolio between those three different businesses. What's great from our business perspective and our technology perspective is it all shares this one single platform. Awesome. So all the payments go through the same thing, and we've developed this next generation set of technology. So like we have a V2 of our email system, a V2 of our website system. That's the exact same thing that is shared across all of these different verticals. So what's happening is we have revenue coming in from each of the verticals that gives us the money to have a crackerjack development team that develops great technology that gets reused by everybody.
Oh, that's great. So what I'm hearing is that you're continuously listening to your customers that led you to identify some needs, especially in the nonprofit segment, which is a lot of your customers, and also in the ticket sign-up space, come from nonprofit, but eventually it's becoming it's big because, as you said, this is a big market share. The target market
It's
is
kind of
pretty big.
surprising to us how many RunSignup customers are starting to use TicketSignup.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing. That's most of our TicketSignup customers are actually coming from RunSignup directly users or
Yeah.
referrals from RunSignup people.
Oh, wow. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. Listening to your customers, focusing on the product, led you to stand up to other, businesses. It will be eventually in a two-digit growth rate per year to year, which is pretty amazing, Bob. Another area, because I think as I read the Founders Corners more, and I get to know that, you run sign up as employee-owned company. And one of the concepts that you shared, which caught my attention is you consider employee as like an API in tech world. And it's a very unique concept. And I know it's easier to say than done, but I'm curious how you actually execute on that vision.
Well, we have this set of guiding principles, and there's three different wheels to it.
Yeah.
But you're focused on this center wheel, which is a virtuous cycle, and the wheel is trust, responsibility, efficiency.
Right.
And so, basically, the concept is that people say you want to, communicate. Well, actually, you want to optimize your communication in an organization.
Right.
If everybody's in meetings all the time, there's no work that gets done, right?
Yep.
And so what you want is for people to do work all the time and have zero meetings. And we're not quite that that efficient.
Okay.
But the idea is that a person has a responsibility and you trust them to do that. And so you can basically like they've got an area of responsibility and they're doing that. In that area of responsibility, they're relying upon other parts of the company to do their responsibility, but they don't need to overshare and over talk about that, right?
Right.
So if you're a salesperson that has a territory, you've got a very clear kind of thing to do, which is to talk with your customers and ask for referrals and then help onboard new customers. When you need help in onboarding new customers, we have an account management and support teams that they can introduce to. And so the sales rep can continue to look for new customers or ask for referrals or keep existing customers happy. But there's these team members that they can rely on, and they don't need to overshare information on that.
Right.
And then the salesperson, when they're talking to customers, they're one of the magic things about RunSignup is a customer buys something today, but they get 2,000 new features each year. And so the salespeople know that, and they trust the developers to do that. The development team is probably the best example of this, where what we try to do is we try to break projects into individual smaller units that can be chunked off a little piece at a time by a single individual.
I see.
So a person might have the responsibility for a component on the website builder or a component that's in the email system, or to create a new report that shows how many people signed up per day or something like that. Those get chunked out as individual projects to individual developers. That individual developer has the responsibility to figure out how to do it and what to do. If they don't know exactly what to do, they can talk to product managers like myself or my daughter, Allison, or they can talk to account managers or salespeople, or the salesperson can actually hook them up with the customer that came up with the idea to do in the first place. But it's their responsibility to really figure out what they're going to implement and how they're going to implement it. And so they're working as a single entity. So instead of me kind of trying to articulate what some individual does on a daily basis, that would be totally inefficient. But if I trust that they're going to take responsibility and do it well, then that becomes enormously efficient. And what's really interesting about this is that individuals, when they feel that sense of responsibility, They actually work harder. They take their
Yeah.
job more seriously. They feel more passionate about it. They feel happier about their job because they did that feature. The customer sends a nice thank you letter. They're like, hey, look, we have some young developers here, and they release something. They go home and they show their mom or something. It's
Right.
great.
This is amazing. I mean, you're pretty much reducing the communication channel because they know what input they're expected, and you're not overloading them with 10 million other communication channels they don't care about, and they
Yeah,
know exactly what they're
The
putting out. Yeah,
CTO I used to work with, Mark Nigro at Bluestone.
yeah,
He's the guy that crystallized that
I
for
see.
me. He says, really, everybody should just be like an API. And an API, it's just a function call, right? So you
Right.
pass some parameters to the API, and then the API returns what you expect. So you pass some parameters, which is a couple paragraphs about what the feature is that you want. And
Right.
then what comes back is the new feature. It's there in the product.
That is true. And they can see it themselves that are being used by customers, and you're having the feedback coming back to them. Hey, look, so and so used my feature that I released because he or she himself or herself built that end to end. That's a complete ownership. That's
Yeah,
pretty amazing.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
No, thanks for sharing. Another area I was curious because RunSignup's kind of the pricing model is kind of the not a norm in the tech industry. Like every SaaS or tech company is going after recurring revenue, subscription model, making sure that you have the error locked in. But you have chosen to be a little different, which is kind of transaction-based model. I'm just curious, like, what was the story behind it, and and you made it work for sure.
So I'm old. So when I was young, software companies sold licenses and support,
Right.
and they always struggled with, how do we get value out of our pricing model and stuff like that. And then, it was around 2000, 2002. Kind of Salesforce was the first big one that started kind of coming onto the market as a SaaS platform with a subscription pricing.
Mhm.
And they were competing with Siebel and PeopleSoft and Oracle, and they basically came in and they invented a whole new pricing mechanism. And
Mhm.
I became part of a company, JBoss, that used that same pricing model to great success and a great growth trajectory. Um, when I started RunSignup, what I saw was that um, there was also this kind of new pricing model that others had invented before,
Mhm.
but had not been quite as pure as what we have implemented.
Yeah.
And it's one of the business strategies that I saw as an opportunity for us to differentiate right up front is that these other people in the registration ticketing space were making a bulk of their money off of transaction processing.
Mhm.
So, charge 6%, but the underlying credit card cost is less than 3%. So take the difference to pay for your software development and other overhead that you have in a company. And what I loved about that basic model is that it was value based.
Right.
So if you have a big race, we actually make a little bit more money off of you than a small race. And that
Right.
makes sense because you're getting greater value. So you're sending more emails off of our platform. The website that we host for you is getting more hits. You're timing more people with our software. You're getting free text messages and free photos for your runners more easily. So I love that business model. I saw other people trying to pollute that pure business model with either an advertising type of thing
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like owning the emails and basically, so if you have a race, I take your emails and I sell them to some other race so that they have emails to go to. I saw companies do subscriptions and things like that. And so we basically founded our company with this principle of, like, we don't own your data at all.
I
We
see.
just have a right to process.
Right.
And so you don't have to worry about us doing ads to your customers to promote other events or stealing your customer list or anything like that. You don't have to worry about us starting to add subscription pricing or anything. And by having that pure model and an efficient business process and being focused on, product led, so our sales and marketing costs are a lot lower than, say, Eventbrite's, and the amount that we spend on technology is a lot higher than they do proportionally, and we just wind up being a more efficient organization. So like Eventbrite just reported a disastrous quarter, Q4, but they are not profitable, and we're profitable. They're 10 times our size. They should be, a lot more profitable because they should be at scale. But our company is profitable because we focused on the right things, and they're charging subscriptions. They're selling ads. They're stealing emails. In my mind, they're stealing emails and, and reselling them. And it just does not make sense to me. The clarity of our business model and this idea of this value-based pricing where, we're just taking a little bit, like the amount of kind of net that we take from a customer is very, very small, but we do that over 9 million, participants that are registering for races, and it adds up enough for us to have a decent business.
No, that makes sense. I mean, just to reiterate for runners who are signing up and they say, hey, why I'm paying for this transaction? If I understand you correct, you are not charging the running organizations any fee. It is your pure revenue is through that transaction when the registration or a runner is signing up for a race, right? That between 4 to 6% that you charge. And you're saying with the credit card transaction, you keep a very small portion of it as your revenue. Which is a very pure model versus, and again, running or races are seasonal in nature because you don't have races in winter. You have, but less number of races. But spring and fall are the two big seasons where most of the races are organized. So you kind of also make it seasonal for you from that point of view. Like that was when the maximum
our revenue chart looks like a tilted seagull. So it's low in January, and then it increases, and then it dips in the summer, and then it increases again in the fall, and then it dips in December. So and because we're kind of growing continuously, it's kind of tilted. So it's tilted seagull.
It's a seagull. Great. Thank you for sharing that insight. Now, the one last area that I want to deep dive on is RunSignup publishes this trend report every year, and I know I'm glad it's very generous of you because you have 40% market share again, and you call out a lack of data integrations. Like there is not like a space where you can go to see all the data in one place. It's you do your best to consolidate the data that you are aware of and publish this annual trend report. I'm just curious, Bob, where is endurance sports heading? You have quite a few trends that you published this year.
So, like the pandemic was tough, but going into the pandemic, it was clear that the endurance market had slowed down. Kind of coming out of that, what we saw last year is that the races that were on our platform in 2019 and in 2023 were down 1% on average. And it was the larger races that were down. More than that, smaller races actually increased in terms of their participation. January, right now it's February 28th, so I don't have February numbers, but the January numbers were actually up 7% from 2023 on a per race basis. There's some various theories that are going around about that we might have a bit of a bump over the next 5 to 10 years. And there's kind of a couple of concepts around that. One is that people were really apart during the pandemic, and running in races is a way for people to come back together. And during the pandemic, some people might have gotten more into exercise and things like that. And so there might be an opportunity there. There is also kind of like a refresh of event organizers too. So some of the weaker ones may have flushed out during the pandemic. They may not have made it, and kind of some new vibrancy we're kind of seeing coming into the marketplace. There's this Every Woman's Marathon is a really interesting use case. It's going to be this fall in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's sponsored by milk.
Okay.
But what they did is very creative. They went off and kind of got a bunch of influencers, women influencers, and like Dina Castor and Molly Seidel and people like that are publishing about this on Instagram, and their numbers are just amazing. Of how many people they're bringing in. A totally new race from scratch.
Oh, wow.
Did not exist before, right? So you have some of that. And then the other thing, and this is a theory I'll attribute to Eric Cohn, who's part of our team, is that there's a generation that's coming. There's like people focus on young runners, but the reality is for the average, half marathon and things like that, it's that 40 to 60 age range that people have kind of gotten out of shape. They're swearing, I'm going to get back into shape. Yeah. And just the population trends indicate that group is going to grow over the next 10 years. And so if that's true, and if previous, percentages work out that, 10% of people in their 40s want to get in shape or something like that, those numbers should flow through to races. It's not going to be boom, boom growth like the 70s or like the early 2000s, but I think it will be steady, kind of incremental growth, a few percent per year.
I see. No, that's definitely three distinct trends you mentioned. Yeah. So for the young, I do see that in the annual report you had the folks with age group of 18 to 30. You have around 15% of runners, and you're predicting that number will grow over the period of time. And at the same time, the 40 to 60 period, which is majority of the runners that tend to grow because the baby boomer generation, or getting in that phase where you're getting into that trend where you have to be healthier, making some lifestyle change decisions. That's the end to see that trend. Another data point that strike out to me, like more than 50% of runners you said are female in all races. That data you say. I'm just curious to see what attributes to that trend or the data you're saying, and any data points you have.
Oh, men are lazy.
Okay. I thought that would be the obvious reason. Yeah.
No, I don't know. I think that, it's, like I'm old. When I was young, there were very few female runners. And one of the great things that I've witnessed over time is that, more and more women are running, and they feel like it's a safer and safer space for them. Mm-hmm. I happen to have two daughters. And so like, I've one of them actually ran all the way through from high school through college. The other one was a professional sitter. She was a coxswain for for Cornell. But I think that it's just like it's a welcoming space, and I think that true. Women feel good and safe about going and doing this. Like when my wife hit her 50s, she and some of her friends got together and started getting in shape. They did a couple of women's triathlons and things like that. And so like I've witnessed this on a personal basis of like just kind of women collectively getting together. And my daughter is my older daughter, she's in her 30s now, but she's gotten friends of hers, and they get together and they go run. And so like they're going to go out and run vacation races. Has one out at Glacier National Park, a half marathon, and she and 11 other friends of hers are going to go out there and do that race. And most of those friends are female. So
wow, no, that's some great insight you shared, and that makes definitely sense because the running community is definitely a safe space for I've been part of running communities. I've seen it's a welcoming space, and that definitely is a contributing factor. One area on the trends you mentioned and the data that I saw in the report, around by 2023, the virtual races are almost 2 to 3% or around 4% range compared to what was in 2020, 2021. Do you think virtual races are here to stay, or you think it will probably fade away in next couple of years?
I think it's a very much of a side business.
I see.
So I think people have enough options with the new Apple Vision Pro to be virtual. um,
Yeah, yeah.
but you know, and Zuckerberg's Meta Quest didn't quite, you know, pan out as I think people want to be together. I think there's a natural tendency for humans to want to be together, and we got to made do with virtual during the pandemic when we couldn't physically be together.
Right.
But I think part of the running experience, and this goes back to the Bucknell story, you know, it's all about the team. You know, it's all about running with other people. You know, you think of running as a very individual sport, but actually running with friends, running within a crowd at a race, it's just a different experience than, you know, kind of running by yourself. That's why I think that, you know, running clubs are so great. It's, you know, it gives you a chance to go out and run with other people.
Right.
So
And make your accountability partner, right? Because you become
yeah,
accountable to them, and in the
exactly.
process, you also fly. Yeah.
Okay, we have to meet on Wednesday.
Yeah.
You have to be there. I'm going to be there. You're going to be there. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, it was wonderful chatting with you, Bob. Thanks so much for so generous with your time and sharing your wisdom and the story that made RunSignup a great company it is, and all the stories that you shared along the way. So really appreciate your time, Bob.
Thank you for your enthusiasm about around running. Like it was obviously very foundational for me.
Mhm.
I learned so much from running, and it's one of the things that I think you know, people like yourself, by promoting running, I think are doing a service to everybody.
No, thank you.
So thank you.
That means a lot. Really appreciate it, Bob.